The customer has usurped control of defining their networks, according to leading network MSP providers Brennan IT and Macquarie Telecom. In our State of MSP series, our network providers share their insights into managing a new networking world order, recast by a mass migration to cloud and an uncertain physical versus virtual office world. At Macquarie Telecom, Group Executive Luke Clifton has witnessed priorities completely shift and change for customers both pre and post-COVID.
So we've had to adapt to some of those trends. And what are they? Well, look, these are the water cooler barbecue stopping conversations of 2022. It's where staff are, where they're doing their work, where their customers are, and the IT staff that are available to be able to enable application performance for both their customers and staff. Now, that's a handful of different topics in there. But broadly, the reason why you engage in MSP or a networking-based MSP like us is to ensure that the application, no matter where it sits and whatever multi-cloud that it's involved in, whether you're hosting it or not, performs in the right way, no matter where your staff member might be or where the customer is at. And during COVID, of course, we all got flown to the wind. We're all sort of going from 5 networking hotspots to many hundreds of networking hotspots. And that put enormous pressure on IT departments right across the country. So one of the major trends that we're seeing now in a post-COVID world is how do you adapt your networking to ensure that the application that you need to use is running in the right way to enable staff or customers, probably at home, but actually globally, no matter where they are. The second major trend that comes off the back end of that is then security and compliance. Now, when you're working in the office, it's much easier to put the right type of wraps and the right type of controls in place to ensure that your data security, your data sovereignty, who's got access to your data, is more tightly controlled in an office environment. When you're not in an office environment, new threats and new weaknesses in your networking become apparent. So one of the big conversations that we're having with many of our customers now is how do you know that your database is secure? How do you know who's getting access to the information that you might consider to be highly sensitive? And how do you know that your customers in that environment can still get access to the data that they need to be able to do business with you?
Infrastructure investment decisions have also radically changed due to the instability or great unknowns in regard to what the needs of the office and the extended network will be. And as such, those clients on a software-defined networking path have come out ahead.
Networkers, like us, is the priority of networking investment decisions has changed. So where an IT department might have been looking to upgrade their architecture or their networking infrastructure in the office environment, no matter where those offices were, that's now changed in terms of priority because they're unsure about when staff are coming back into the office, how long they're going to be back in the office for, and whether or not that's a sensible decision to make right now. Now, we've seen those customers that have made the move to software-defined networking have had far more flexibility in the way that they've gone about being able to deploy their architecture and investments, as opposed to those that were tied to legacy networks. But the decision-making frameworks as to when decisions like that need to be made have changed. I think we've all been talking about how many days a week staff are going to be in the office. And when you're trying to make dimensioning decisions and based on investments back to your CFO to say, hey, this is a really smart investment to make from your network to upgrade it, be it the bandwidth or be it the type of platform that bandwidth is operating on. These are some uncertainties that most IT managers are beginning to try and get clear in their head that they're going to need some flexibility around this. So tying yourself into one platform or tying yourself into one bandwidth, given that things might change in a month or 6 months or 12, is really one of the compelling factors that are putting pressure on IT managers to ensure they've got that customization and flexibility. That's where software-defined networking really comes into its own. Being able to dimension in real time where you need the bandwidth and where you need your priorities in terms of application deployment and which particular applications take priority in bandwidth becomes critically important. The old networking of fixed MPLS type networks is gone.
In terms of following the growth, Everything is being redefined by the cloud, and how to best manage that across multiple and extended network scenarios, which is key to servicing the new paradigm of customer expectations.
Where is the growth coming from for MSPs? Well, clearly for us, it's really in two major buckets. The first one is the mega trend of journey to the cloud, especially for Azure, primarily driven by Office 365, but many of the other application suites that sit on the Microsoft customer stack is really driving a lot of conversations with customers about how do they take legacy workloads and migrate them into an Azure stack that is dimensioned and customized specifically for that particular customer. That is topic number almost 1, 2, and 3 for our customers at this moment in time. The next part of this is, even though you might have moved those applications, those workloads, those databases through to the cloud, then how do you ensure that you've got the right networking dimensions to ensure that the application, while it might be performing really well on the server or in the cloud or in the multi-cloud that you're managing, how do you ensure that that application is working really well when your office, for the staff that might need access to that application, might be in Ballarat, or they might be in Dubbo, or they might be in the warehouse in DY? And how do you know through a single pane of glass that you're getting bang for your buck in terms of the migration that you've done, that the security is in place, and the application is performing well at the edge? We're getting into managed multi-networks. And so that's a series of different conversations that we need to be abreast of and engaged with. We need to be in touch with many vendors and many partners to make holistic solutions for customers work.
The key trend on the managed network side of things is really around SDWAN. And what SDWAN has done is really taken the power of managing the network away from the telcos like Telstra and Optus, and it's put it back into the hands of the clients.
To Brennan IT MD Dave Stevens, there has been a strong client empowerment taking place over the last 2 years, as the new demands of the work from home regime meant that the client defined the network structure, not the service provider.
We're seeing clients want to buy, for example, their own fleet of 40 net devices to stand an SD-WAN up on, in some cases including the central core network that those devices will traverse to, and also the 40 manager and the architecture or the fabric of the SD-WAN itself. And that really means that they've disintermediated themselves from needing to buy carriage, which is linked to the management of that carriage, as we would in the MPLS days. And what it means is that they can then drive some sort of price contention across the telcos or the links that they're purchasing. They can purchase commoditized links like NBN, for example, combine it with dark fiber and things like 4 and 5G, and come up with a really resilient network that operates exactly the way that they want it to operate. And what clients often do in that case is that they bundle that up and put it under a managed network contract, which never would have happened in the past. That would have been, that network equivalent in MPLS would have been managed by something like us or Telstra or Optus. So that's been a really significant change in the way clients are procuring WAN.
The push to cloud-based applications and the move away from telco monopolies in the network space is fueling growth and also dropping clients' use of VPN.
So one of the drivers is just that natural desire to want to disintermediate from monopolistic providers in the network space. So that's driving a significant push towards SD-WAN. But what's also driving it is the consumption of cloud-based applications. So in traditional kind of IT environments, all of the traffic would have headed back in a hub and spoke model back to a client's data center or to a hosted cloud provider like us. What's happening now is that traffic around Office 365 is transitioning out to Microsoft, for example. The client might have AWS environments, which is going to AWS. And then there might be another, dozens, and in some cases hundreds of cloud-based applications And that traffic goes in all sorts of different directions. And from an SD-WAN perspective, we get the ability to be able to route that traffic through differently. So we can get private links into Microsoft and AWS and many other providers, and then provide more of a dedicated pathway for that sort of traffic. So very difficult to do from an MPLS perspective, very costly from an overhead perspective, and lacking any kind of AI or self-learning that SD-WAN can have. So that's another technical reason that is really driving SD-WAN uptake.